based on a humane point of view. Hi, sir. How have you been?
Good morning, Roberto. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, I am. Well, great. Um, um, well, this topic affect any company around the world, regardless of the size of the company or the industry, etc. Because uh, when people try to gain power or money through illegal means, it could be directly through nepotism, corruption. So, have you faced this before?
Certainly have seen some corruption that I did see the company address, and people got fired. Some of it, I would say, was nepotism. And nepotism, I think, in a bad way, can certainly ruin a company's culture, and in particular cases, some people got fired. But there's also a good nepotism. Originally UOP had a great intern program for hiring interns into the company, which were primarily college students of employees, and it really built company loyalty, where your children or your nephews or whatever, or cousins, etc., had an opportunity at the job, and while they were going to school, to see if they'd be a good fit for the company culture. And it was an excellent pipeline for really an extended interview. I mean, I myself went through the intern program, and basically they were able to interview me over multiple summers as an intern, and then ultimately hire me. And the same thing with, if it's done well, nepotism, in terms of giving opportunities to employees' children to work there, as long as they're not in a role directly related to their parents, it's a great opportunity to see if they'd be a great fit for the company, and it really can build loyalty. On the other hand, some nepotism, I knew of a case where basically this employee was influencing a vendor, saying, look, if you don't hire this person who was in a relationship with this person, got fired. And because they got caught, the vendor said, holy cow, went to procurement, went up through the vice president, and they got him on tape, pressing the vendor to hire this, person in their relationship, and they were fired. So, there's a good nepotism and there can be a bad nepotism, and I think a lot of it depends on how above board, how open you are about, is there a relationship there that needs to be disclosed publicly, openly, and widely. I think when it's open to the daylight and sunlight and so on, nepotism can be a good thing. When it's hidden and converse, it's almost always bad.
Yeah, indeed. I agree. And I haven't faced before neither a nepotism or corruption, but specifically for the nepotism topic, I think totally agree. The thing is, you might see this as a good or as a bad stuff, depending on where you are. And I don't mean the position, I don't mean the company. What I mean is something that you proposed based on the fact that you haven't found out a good provider who could provide a solution, or based on the fact that you are seeing from far away that someone has brought their father, their son, their cousin to their company, specifically as a vendor or as a candidate for a for a job, excuse me. So I think, yes, nepotism to be seen as a burden to the company if it's something that you or the people or the person who is bringing that relative, that sibling to the company, you're receiving a benefit for yourself, not for the company. But for the opposite, if it's for the company, it should be cool. But depending on who sees that will determine if it's true, if it's good or bad.
Exactly, and I think the openness about the awareness of the relationship is a critical factor in assessing, what the humane leader does. If the humane leader is under pressure to, hey, I want you to bring in my wife's brother-in-law to be the data provider for our company, then, but don't tell anybody, don't let procurement know there's a relationship. Obviously, that smells of problem and corruption / nepotism, right? And the process we went through was very open. There were, everyone knew that, hey, this is my cousin, or this is my nephew, or this is my son or daughter. And there was a committee selecting the top, and depending on the year, we might have 5 interns, or we might have 50 interns, or 100 interns. And so because it was very open, it didn't have that air of corruption, right? It was a much more positive thing for the company to see these young kids coming in, doing the right thing. And my assessment is probably about 1/3 of the interns had some kind of relationship with the company. The other 2/3 were just the best candidates from various colleges that applied, for summer internships. So I think as long as it's very open to the sunlight, open to the daylight, as soon as somebody's asking you to, don't mention that, hey, this is my brother-in-law or et cetera, then the corruption part of nepotism begins, and that's usually spells disaster. I suppose it's possible that the brother-in-law's company could be the very best service provider and offer you the best deal, and it benefits the company even more that you get even better service because there's a family relationship. But if they're trying to keep it quiet, odds are there's probably better vendors and better pricing from somebody else.
Oh yeah, and the thing about nepotism and something that you cannot manage is that maybe that company belongs to a sibling or relative of you, and you don't want to tell the rest of the company that there is a relationship. So the thing about nepotism is that maybe within the company there could be a nepotism, but you won't know about it because they might not have the same last name. They might not be even look alike. You could see, oh, this guy looks like this gal. No, they might not be. Or there might be that the owner is the relative. So the people who goes to the meetings, the people who tries to sell you something, they might not be related. So I think it's really, really difficult to notice that. And you, as a humanitor, ain't a detective. To find out, to go deep research and find out if belongs to a relative or not. So I think us as humanitarians have to have a boundary of how long can we go and how long shouldn't we go.
Yes, I agree completely. And again, I think if it follows my rule of openness and communication is very public, everybody sees, everybody knows, the odds of it being a conflict of interest of any kind is probably pretty small. Again, I think secrets, while you may not be able to disclose revenue numbers, let's say it's with a vendor, you can't disclose how much sales or what's the price or things like that, right? That even when you bring in a vendor, lots of times procurement and the hiring leader, you keep the price sensitive because it is a sensitive topic, but that's the only part that should be secret. I just don't know. I think large corporations, because they go through a lot of audits, it is a lot harder to hide nepotism, it's a lot harder to hide the corruption because there's so many eyes looking at things all the time that somebody can see it and bring it up anonymously. Like we had a 1-800 toll-free number that you could call in and report something suspicious. Now, back when there were payphones, you could do it, and clearly they wouldn't be able to trace it to you, right? Because you could go to some payphone that's 30 miles from your house. It could have been one of any 10,000 employees who went to that payphone to call in this tip. Nowadays, I'm not quite sure how anonymous you can be because there aren't many payphones left that you could make the phone call to put an anonymous tip in. But we did have an entire team of our security department that literally just investigated those kinds of things.
Well, let me tell you two things about my past. When I was working at a mid-sized startup, which was headquartered in Germany. We have an email which was ethics at the name of the company. And we have this procedure in which we have to send an email if we found out about anything, nepotism, corruption, or something illegal, and they would take charge of that. And I didn't see anything more that anyone could have sent something as of an email. But I remember right now when I was working at a bank, that one of the engineers got into of a big problem regarding like a couple of $1 million because this guy was the director of infrastructure department. And since a bank is a huge company which has robust and solid infrastructure, the problem with that was that this guy received that amount of money to deliver those kind of projects, but he wasn't caught. He wasn't directly caught. The provider approached the company and say, guess what? I did this with this person, and I feel guilty about this. Sorry that I did it. And there was suddenly this turmoil and revolution within the company because nobody saw that, and they were investigating this guy. And when I left the bank, the bank was in process of suing this guy because of that. So it was a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's significant. I mean, I'm not aware of any cases where the employee ended up getting sued for any funds or fraud like that. And in a few cases, there's been arrests. We did do government work, so if they did something where they accepted money or gave away secrets, obviously the government would go after them. And there were arrests and convictions for things like that. So I'm not saying that big companies don't have those problems. They certainly do. But there seems to be, just from my observations, a lot of eyes looking at things. So the odds of it getting caught, I think, are pretty high. And so somebody's got to be really trying hard to do something bad to get, to try and get it hidden. Because just so many eyes would see it. And as the humane leader, we've got an obligation. If we think something is wrong, something is amiss, all right, legally we probably have some kind of obligation to approach the company through whatever security sources to report the problem. But we too can also use the anonymous system to start the investigation off. And I would say, if I were in a large company and if it was a very politically tied situation, like, maybe a vice president 2 levels above me or something is doing something I think is suspicious, I don't think I would probably risk my career to report it. I would probably use the anonymous reporting system, because I certainly had seen many cases of where people felt they were unduly pressured for things and they reported it, and there was absolutely retribution. The court, HR will tell you, oh no, that would never happen. But there's an awful lot of subtle ways that a senior leader can derail your career just by saying, I just don't think you should hire Chris for that role. Boom, you're out, right? Just on a word, a conversation in the hallway that a vice president has with somebody. So, you do, as a humane leader, need to realize doing the right thing is your job, but do it in a way that, you're not being stupid about it, that it could ruin your career. I don't care what HR says. I don't care what the huge corporate policy is or the medium-sized corporate policy is. The bottom line is, if you report something, and even if they are removed, there may be other friends of theirs that were involved but didn't get caught, there's going to be retribution. So I would say 90% of the time you need to use the anonymous reporting system, and only when it directly impacts you would I go directly to HR. If it's that, look, my direct boss is coming to me and trying to get me to do something like sign a contract with a vendor that I'm going to be accountable because I'm signing the contract, but it's this guy's brother-in-law. You can't anonymously report that. You're the only one. So you're definitely going to HR, or you're definitely going to your security team, whatever your process is, and you're going to have to just take your chances that there won't be retribution. But I would definitely lean into some of those anonymous methods if you can, to report problems of nepotism and corruption.
Totally agree. Totally agree. There will be retribution, and in most of these times, this retribution will be that if you might not get fired from the company, but if you want, that person is going to be at your neck on a daily basis, and you will feel the heat. So I think, yes, anonymous will be the best choice to do. I remember when I was at a company 6 years ago, that between the restrooms, there was bots, an anonymous bots, and people could put on over there certain stuff, anonymous, so people, so the C-level would act. And I remember well that at a meeting, a C-level meeting, the person in charge of human resources brought a topic related not to me, for one of my teams and team members, and she told me, "Hey, this lady, well, someone wrote that this lady got into corruption with certain vendors," and I read it, and I said, "But she's a junior engineer. She doesn't have not the power, not the decision, not everything." So I think what the problem with this anonymous boxes or anonymous repositories is that people could say something, try to gain something about it. And I found out a couple of years later that the person who wrote this was having a fight, a verbal fight with this lady. So she tried to do a harmful way to this person. So I think that even though anonymous is an amazing stuff to say the right stuff, it also could be for the bad stuff as well.
Absolutely, and that I'd say actually in large corporations that probably happens even more because of the politics of office politics. I had a case of an employee getting investigated by security around potentially stolen laptops, and security looked into it on eBay. They were selling all these laptops on eBay,
Wow.
fixing them up and then selling them. They're like, oh, well, we think they're stealing them, so we're going to buy a couple of them and check them against our inventory of missing laptops. I'm like, well, man, this employee it doesn't make much money, but I'm telling you, they work really hard. They keep good inventory. I doubt it, and so they went on eBay and they bought like 3 or 4 of them. Not a single laptop was stolen. They were all, bought online, refurbed, and then resold. This person just had a knack with hardware, enjoyed working at it for their full-time job, and on the side, repaired and sold computers. And so somebody obviously was not happy with this employee, and probably because how some people get jealous that somebody has a side business and made extra money and maybe was able to go on a nice vacation, and then they're jealous. So then they report them. They're stealing laptops. Well, they weren't, and I really didn't believe that they were, because this person didn't, in the process that they did work on hardware, they didn't have access to the storeroom. They would get a computer. We had a very rigorous check-in, check-out as the technicians were working on them. There was no opportunity for this person to get them and then, disappear it. There was a paper trail for everything. We were very rigorous processes. So sometimes, these false accusations can be very detrimental. I don't even know if they interviewed the employee. The employee was 2 levels below me. They never approached me to say, what's going on? Why is security, asking me all these questions? So I think maybe they just bought the laptops, and when nothing checked out, they just dropped it. So it probably didn't damage their career. To my best of my knowledge, the employee's still working there, so I'm guessing it did not. Did they miss out on some pay raises or promotions? Maybe, but I think I think it was somebody's sour grapes. Somebody was jealous of the productivity of this other person and reported them. And that's the problem with anonymous, right? You got to be very careful, because the investigation of the accusation can be very damaging to your career. So, if you think there's corruption and you're going to anonymously report it, obviously you can't say certain things that only you would know, but you need to have some pretty solid evidence before you go and do that, because if you're wrong, even as the humane leader, and you're trying to do the right thing, as the humane leader, you could ruin their career.
Oh yeah. I smile. I totally agree with you, and I smile for the people who are watching this video. I smile because it was like back in 98, no, 99, when I received to my email death threats. I was shocked. Oh my God, what's going on?
Wow.
And I brought this to the CEO, and the CEO got to the head of human resources and the VP and etc. And I thought, what's going on? It was one of my friends at the work who thought that was funny to do. So yeah. And I brought this because from something as stupid, as a dumb, as a bad joke as this guy did, the whole company moved out and they say, what's going on? So I think that Anonymous is an excellent tool when it's good, when it's properly used. Otherwise, it's a deadly tool. So people had to know when to do, how to use anonymous stuff.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. It is a judgment call, and as a humane leader, we need to be open to hear. If someone approaches us, is open to hear the accusations of corruption or nepotism, but be able to also explain to the employees if there is an open policy. Let's say again, like my intern example, right? Openly communicate it. openly communicate it during your team meetings. Tell the team what's going on. And if it's open to the light of day, then it's probably not corruption or the negative nepotism versus the positive, family internships and things like that. So that's kind of my rule as the humane leader, is that if someone comes to me with something and we talk about it and they thought it was suspicious, but it really is something open it more widely. Don't bring up that this person brought it up to you, but talk about it in a team meeting or at your next department town hall. Bring up that we are going to have the summer internship program, and just as a reminder, friends and family are very welcome to apply. We may not be able to hire them because we base it on technical skills, and there's a committee that everybody looks at it, but this is a great benefit to the company to have these opportunities, to have these internships, and give your nephews, cousins, daughters, sons opportunities to experience work as they're going to school, and be very open about it.
Yeah, indeed. Great, man. Cool. I think with this we can end this episode, which was a nice one.
Absolutely. It was interesting, and I hope you can have some summer interns next summer and help some kids begin their career journey.
I do trust as well. Well, thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.